Let's go. Yo. Get up, nah, I ain't a quitter. Toss me the ball, I'm a really big hitter. Big picture, I'm a straight killer. Rising the song to the highest bidder. Got juice, got gas, I'ma move fast. New shoes, new tracks, like who's that? I'm new, come back, better than last. Yeah, it's a new me, never gonna look back. Never gonna look back. Cause damn, I was built to last. You move slow and I move fast. And that's facts.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this rapid-fire edition of the Chicago Sports Podcast. My name is Kyle Duplessis, and I will be your host, co-host, and guest this evening. That's right, guys. I'm doing this show solo. We'd like to talk about the Bears coaching search. Bears obviously fired Matt Eberflus the Friday after their abysmal loss to the Detroit Lions and are searching for their next head coach in this upcoming offseason. This week, Brad Biggs came out with an article stating that the Bears have moved 4 candidates to the top of their coaching list. That would be Ben Johnson, the Detroit Lions offensive coordinator, Mike Vrabel, a free agent head coach, Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. And excuse me, guys. Ultimately, of these 4 candidates, the Bears have moved to the top of the list. Mike Vrabel seems to me like he'd be the most realistic of the 4. He's probably the guy with the most experience on this list, and he's probably the guy the Bears would be leaning to during this coaching search. Mike Vrabel was a coach for the Tennessee Titans. He was there for 6 seasons, and he went to the playoffs during 3 seasons, from 2019 to 2021. He was ultimately a winning football coach. He had an overall record of 54-45 and made the playoffs in 3 straight seasons. The Titans actually ended up starting the next season, 2022, on a 7-3 run until Ryan Tannehill ultimately got injured. They lost 7 in a row, and in turn, they ultimately missed the playoffs. But by all accounts, Mike Vrabel was a good coach, and he was not the reason for the Titans' struggles. The Titans never really had a good quarterback there. And they never really had a good roster, guys. They had good defenses there, but ultimately their offense never really had any really star playmakers on it. There wasn't a lot of blue chip players there. I'd say that Mike Vrabel got a lot out of a little. And ultimately, if you're looking at the 4 candidates to be the Bears' next head coach, Brian Flores, Mike Vrabel, Joe Brady, or Ben Johnson, I think that the Bears would probably narrow that down to 2. For me personally, it would come down to Ben Johnson or Mike Vrabel. If you're looking for a guy who has a lot of experience, a guy who you think is kind of like the safe play, the guy who can't screw it up, I would say that Mike Vrabel is probably going to be the Bears' hire. But if they're looking for somebody who's innovative, young, an offensive mind, somebody to bring something to the Chicago Bears that we've never really seen before, that would probably be Ben Johnson. If you look at the strengths and weaknesses of the 2, Mike Vrabel would be a safe play due to the fact that the Bears really couldn't screw it up. If I hire Mike Vrabel, they're probably going to get the same results that he got in Tennessee. I mean, obviously, with a different team and a better roster, I think Mike Vrabel could be a winning coach for the Bears for a long time. Not only could he be a winning coach for the Bears for a long time, but I think he would be a good guy to pair up with Caleb Williams. Mike Vrabel is not just a defensive coordinator. A lot of people say, oh, should the Bears hire an offensive coach or a defensive coach? Ultimately, it doesn't matter. You want to hire a leader of men, right? Well, Mike Vrabel has also been known to be involved heavily both on the offense and defense when he was the head coach for the Tennessee Titans. Mike Vrabel also came from the New England Patriots, who were coached by Bill Belichick, probably the best coach in NFL history. So that right there should give him a plus. I mean, he learned from the best on the job. He also seems like he's kind of I don't want to say no bullshit kind of guy. A coach the Bears haven't hired since Mike Ditka, basically, a guy who is kind of not necessarily a yes man. He's afraid to talk back to the Bears brass, and he's not afraid to do things his way. And I think that's probably the best bet for them, because the Bears have such a dysfunctional organization. This team has not been able to put a good head coach in place for the last 30 years. I mean, after Mike Ditka, it's been nothing but downhill ever since. Lovie Smith had a few good years here, but people act like he was a winning coach for years and years and years. The last time the Bears had back-to-back winning seasons, guys, was 2005 and 2006. And the last time they had 3 winning seasons in a row was in the late 80s. So ultimately, all the coaches we've had here, when you talk about the Matt Nagy's, you talk about the Mark Trestmans, you talk about the John Foxes, none of them were very good coaches, and the team wasn't very good either. I think ultimately this team has the potential to win games. I think the Bears are pretty close to being a very, very competitive football team who can ultimately make the playoffs. If you look at the team last year, They had 7 wins going into this year. I think we all expect them to get better, but you never really know what to expect from a rookie quarterback, how much that his struggles are going to impact the ultimate end result for this team. And the Bears started off strong. They looked like a good football team, and everything kind of fell apart after that Washington Commanders game, which I believe was that loss should solely rest on Matt Eberflus's shoulders, as should 4 or 5 other losses this season. The Bears made the right move in dismissing Matt Eberflus as the head football coach for the Chicago Bears, and now ultimately are going to be in charge of finding Ryan Poles going to be in charge of finding the next coach for the Chicago Bears. I think Mike Vrabel and Ben Johnson are their 2 best options. And if you listen to what the media is saying, what people are on social media, those guys seem to be the general consensus best 2 free agent coaches available. And I think it ultimately depends on which way the Bears look at this. I mean, if you look at it in terms of, as the Bears brass, do they have their fingerprints on this team enough to screw this up? Then you would probably want to hire Mike Vrabel, because I think ultimately they would once they hired him, they'd kind of give him the keys to the car and let him do his own thing. And I think that's what Vrabel would ask for if he was in an interview with Ryan Poles, Ken Warren, George McCaskey, and telling them what his demands would be to be head coach for the Chicago Bears. I think Ben Johnson's one of those guys where you kind of have to worry about, right, well, he's been an offensive coordinator in the NFL, but he's never been a head coach. We've seen this before where teams hire offensive coordinators to be their head coach, and ultimately it doesn't work out. That risk is a factor when it comes to Ben Johnson. You don't know what you're going to get from him as a head coach. He's obviously a very, very good offensive coordinator. He was retained by Dan Campbell when the previous coaching staff was fired. He then promoted him to offensive coordinator, and the Lions offense has gotten better every single year since. If you look at them in 2022, they were ranked 4th, 2023 ranked 3rd, and in 2024 they're ranked 2nd, and ultimately could finish as the best offense in the NFL. Ben Johnson also took a quarterback in Jared Goff, who was never really a terrible quarterback in LA, but he wasn't the quarterback that they thought would win them the Super Bowl. That's why they made the trade for Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford. Ben Johnson has made Jared Goff look like an all-pro, Hall of Fame. He's in the list of candidates for MVP this season. He's by far looked like a better quarterback since joining Detroit Lions than Ben Johnson. He's also having his best season of his career right now. So it's going to be a tough decision for the Bears to make. I think ultimately the Bears are probably going to lean towards Mike Vrabel, because I think the Bears are just kind of that team that always plays it safe. But it's going to be a toss-up. Is Mike Vrabel the ideal fit for this team? I don't know. I'd say that if you look at his coaching tenure in Tennessee, I think he's proven that he's capable of being a good head coach in the NFL. He did it, guys. I mean, that Tennessee team, like I said, that was a talented, depleted roster. They didn't have a lot of good blue chip players, a lot of stars, and Mike Vrabel still found a way to win games. And like I said, he had 3 straight winning seasons in a row, in which he made the playoffs, and ultimately the season following, I believe it was 2022. The only reason they didn't make the playoffs is Ryan Tannehill got hurt, and they lost 7 straight games in a row, ultimately missing the playoffs. But if you look at his tenure there as a whole, he's a winning coach with a winning record, and it sounds like his players respect him. It sounds like that people listen to him when he talks, and that seems to be the problem the Bears have had as of late, especially with Matt Eberflus. He seems like one of those guys that when he talks in the locker room, nobody really listens to him. I think the Bears need a no bullshit kind of coach. I think they need a guy as close to Mike Ditka as they could probably get, although we're probably never going to see a guy like Mike Ditka in the NFL again. I don't think most of the stuff he does would fly in today's NFL, but I mean, if you're looking for that guy who has proven that he could have sustained success with an organization, and he's good at hiring offensive coordinators, which Mike Vrabel was. Obviously, he's one of his offensive coordinators was Matt LaFleur. Another one of his offensive coordinators was later became on to be a head coach in the NFL. I'm pretty sure he was in the NFL. But ultimately, I think if the Bears choose either of these guys, I really don't think they can go wrong. I think ultimately either one of these guys would be a good decision for them. And it would be kind of a little outside of the box for the Bears, because I think most of the media and most of the NFL world is saying that these are the general consensus top 2 picks at head coach this offseason. And the Bears ultimately usually go their own way, right? I mean, we didn't hear much about Mark Trestman before the Bears hired him. I don't think many people were looking at John Fox to be head coach in the NFL again when the Bears hired him. Matt Nagy was hit or miss. Not many people knew who he was. And then you got to Matt Eberflus, where the second that he was hired, people were like, looking up Wikipedia, who is Matt Eberflus, what has he done? And ultimately, when you looked at his stats, he was kind of in the middle of the pack as a defensive coordinator. I don't think it was a good hire. I think the Bears need to go with the general consensus, although I hate to say that, because you'd like to see them pick their guy that they believe is smart and can do the job and be a leader of men, good leader of men. And I don't know if the Bears are capable of doing that with who they have in position, especially if George McCaskey or Kevin Warner are going to have their fingerprints on this hire. think ultimately Mike Vrabel is the guy. But please, guys, let me know in the comments who you think. Would you prefer Ben Johnson or would you prefer Mike Vrabel? Please like, subscribe, and share this with your friends, and leave comments. We appreciate you guys. We look forward to talking to you guys in the future. Thanks for listening to me, guys. Appreciate you.